Oh, yeah. Oh, you're recording it. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I wanted to get your uh, perspective on a few things just because the experience will be valuable for other people, just to learn from what you have to share.
Okay. Okay. Um. Yeah. So basically, I got in touch with you because I saw your profile online, and like I run a company where we are building like neurotech wearables for commercial applications. So basically, what we do is we're building a really affordable research grade devices for users to understand their cognitive performance and stress and mental fatigue in real time. And for that, we are targeting like esports players because they go through lots of, while they're in a gaming session, they are in high hyperactivity, hyper stress, and they perform at the very highest level. But over the time, during the gaming session, their performance drops down. So we are building this platform and the device which can actually track all that performance variations in real time and then intervene when the performance drops below the expected levels, and then they can re-strategize on how to operate in that same scenario again. And then on the second level, we pair them up with performance coaches in their specific domain for them to actually um, understand and improve their performance. Obviously, esports players are one of our target audiences, but we are going to go global with all sorts of actual athletes who play football, soccer, uh, then tennis, cycling, all of that, because that device is applicable to everyone who goes through this peaks and troughs of performance variations, and our device can map those out. And we're working with like very high level researchers from Stanford, UCL, and Northumbria, and loads of different universities to build these devices. So yeah, so that's why I thought it might be interesting to have a chat with you because you operate within the gaming esports arena, and it might be interesting to have your perspective on this kind of a device.
Thank you so much for sharing the brief background about what you're building. Now, can you share more about who you are? Like, how did you get into like the company you work at, or like what's your skill background?
Yeah, so for me, my background, by trade, I'm an aerospace engineer. So I did my bachelor's and master's in aerospace engineering. And since then, I have worked in defense and aerospace. Uh, then I have worked in massive infrastructure such as railways in UK. So I'm based in London. So since then, after graduating from uni, work in defense, work in engineering, and now right now I run my company, but I also work as a strategy and AI consultant at Monitor Deloitte. So since then, I have been always focused on solving a problem based on cognitive performance, mental trauma, anxiety, depression, all sorts of mental health issues. I think building a device can really help them. And I'm right now currently I'm building the team around this product, and we have the strong founding team. So I have a CTO and two CTOs, a co-CTO and a CTO, which they are hardware and a software engineers, and I'm just overseeing the whole company to deliver this outcome.
Thank you for your response. For people in the audience who don't understand quite what the product does, we're going to dive deeper into the use cases. So specifically cyber athletes and esports, professional gamers, as most people know them, they have a lot of actual trauma that people don't understand. And the way I explain it is in physical sports like the National Football League, for example, you see the trauma physically up front. It's a in software developer terms, it's a front end problem, right? You're going to see all of the damage done to your brain, to your skeletal structure, and everything up front. In esports, it's reversed. When you have a psychological experience that is damaging to you in esports, you will not see that problem until many years later sometimes where you hear about esports or cyber athletes specifically in really competitive fields like Dota 2, for example, competing for the international. Many of them will have severe anxiety, or maybe they have some type of depression or etc. And these things will develop later because they don't know how to deal with playing on that national stage, right? Human beings weren't designed to play on these national stages and deal with the amount of stress that they deal with on a either monthly, quarterly basis. That's just not something that human beings have evolved for. They originally involved in terms of video games things like you're playing chess, or even older, you're playing Go, right? And these are between, like, let's say if you're a soldier in your unit and you have your leading officer and then you have like your general, right? You're playing Go with these people maybe hundreds of years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, right? That's more realistic because Go will teach you how to strategize, how to develop proper tactics, and have the psychological fortitude to deal with superior opponents in real time. But in esports, that is amplified maybe 100x or 1,000x or maybe 100,000x, right? Because you have the stage, you have 100,000 viewers, a million viewers, and sometimes over 3 million viewers watching you, and then you have all of that added. We call it trauma, which is really just another word for, or another term phraseology for saying that you have damage done to your brain and or your body. And so this is something where what Samarth is developing, it's crucial to the industry because for somebody like myself, who my background is, I was never the greatest video game player, but my strength is the business side. How can I get products, characters like Samarth to understand and kind of accept the reality of esports where not everybody's going to understand the product, and that's okay. You can educate them. But the real market for this isn't so much cyber athletes because to get that how do you say it, that product placement in all of these top teams and organizations, it's going to take forever. They're going to have to adopt it, and that's going to take a while. Instead, what you do is the reverse. You get it to the grassroots, and then you kind of just say, hey, test out this product, right? We'll see how you perform over the next 90 days. And then you make a case study off of that at the grassroots level. Because if you try to go for like the institutional investors, the venture
It doesn't
capitalists,
work.
etc.,
It
how
doesn't
are they
work.
going to get, yeah, how are they going to get the product to all the top esports organizations and teams, right? They're just going to go in there one day and the CEO is going to be like, why is the investor here? The investor is going to show this product that Samarth built, and the CEO is going to be like, "What's the use of this? Right? How is it going to help me win the world championship tomorrow?" Like, they're not going
Yeah,
to have
exactly.
the they're not going to have the necessary data points with a long enough time frame, right? 90 days, 180 days, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. They need that time to assess the results, right? The long term second and third order consequences of the product in the field, and you can't just deliver that at the top of the funnel or at the top of the hierarchy in esports and gaming. You need to get the grassroots level players to adopt it first, and then they're going to be the ones to give you all that upfront user data, and that's how you sell it to everybody else.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like you have mentioned quite, I think in the short chat you understood it. You understood it very well, and like let me break it down to the few points you mentioned, right? So the first point you mentioned about the stress trauma, which has already been done, but how do user a new person understand what this product do? So this product is basically for people who play under a high pressure situation right now, and they might have some kind of a trauma while playing the game or the environment they are in. All this time people just cannot quantify that. There is a qualitative analysis done by psychologists, and maybe if your physiological indicators will show you that you're going through high stress, high trauma situation based on your how you're feeling it physiologically. But sometimes it might be just too late. So what we do is we support them with the data to show you like that today you had this much of stress or mental fatigue, and your performance dropped. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and then so on and so forth for 30 days. You see the whole report of how your stress levels are behaving. And we are also trying to integrate data from your diet, your steps, from your smartwatches, and all of that. So we are trying to build a really comprehensive model based on based on all of these different physiological and different indicators which we can work with to show your stress levels and mental fatigue levels in real time. So that's one of the things. And now it's and affordability of the device is really interesting as well, because you want to make sure that the device anyone can buy it for about 200 to 300 bucks. Because our device, if the device with which we are building, if you go and buy it from a manufacturer who work in research or medical industry, it costs about 10,000 to 100,000 pounds. But we are hand building this as an engineer so that people can actually afford it, and we are coding the software and the back end, the front end, everything, so that people can actually afford it and they have a rich experience. And we are trialing out with CSGO right now. So we're going to have a CSGO performance, the in-game performance on top of your brain performance, and we can show you how the variations are impacting your performance. So that's your first question. So any game you're playing, we're going to call the APIs and plot your game performance on top of your brain performance. And we're going to give you different KPIs based on that, on stress, focus, and all of that. Now, second question, which you rightfully said, you can't go to CEOs of these sports agencies and the companies. Even though I have a very extensive network, I won't even approach them, because it's similar to YouTube. Because YouTube, when they started, they didn't go to these big advertising agencies or big firms of like BMW or whatever the adverts are. They didn't go to them, oh no, come to our platform and start advertising it. They went to users first, and users built the whole platform and the experience itself, and then the advertisers came after. This is going to be a similar approach. We're going to go to the users at first, and we're going to make sure that the users are actually benefiting from it. And then once we build on top of that with our algorithms and improving the device architecture and all of that, then we can go and talk to high level execs or whatnot, even if we need to. So our whole approach is based on how users are feeling it. So we're going to scale from 100 users to 1,000 users to 10,000 users, and we're going to curate experience for each different individual user differently to build our data model, because everyone within the gaming community and in different communities manages, faces, and deals with the stress differently. So we want to make sure that we can have a platform which can cater to all those different kinds of needs as well. And then there will be a bunch of people who would not like to share their brain data with us. So we have created this whole system where it's a tenant based, so that we don't get any data if you don't allow us to. It just starts on your system and ends on your system, and we don't get to see any data, which is fine with us. But if we just can, then we are just going to use our basic models to help you out with your stress. But if you let us use your data, we're going to use it to build more powerful algorithms to show you how you can improve in future using the same scenarios. So yeah, so I hope those two things answered your questions.
Thank you for your response, Samarth. The audience will not understand the value of what you're building for maybe 2 to 3 generations. And why I say this is because I've worked with some of the top agencies in the gaming world and the top esports cyber athletes and all these teams, and they have similar products as to what you're using, but they're proprietary to like maybe research agencies as you mentioned, or maybe it's a university like Stanford, or maybe it's like a private government agency, for example, right? And they won't share this data with the public, right? It's only for those specific teams, only for those specific organizations. And so this is really the first time that you can afford such an experience. And it's not about necessarily the cost of the device. People think $200 or $300 is expensive, but that's a how do you say it? It's a very, I wouldn't say convoluted, but it's a very warped perspective of the uh, higher end experience in terms of video games. So let's say when I was a kid, to understand the warped perspective is like, oh, I'm paying $300 for this device. Like, how's it going to help me become a professional cyber athlete when I have qualifiers next month, right? In 30 days, right, the device probably isn't going to give you the best results to become a professional cyber athlete. That's just not enough time. But if you put 180 days in, you put 2 years or 5 years in, right? All of that data from your brain, which you wouldn't have had earlier, all that data from the way your body's responding to stress that you wouldn't have had earlier, that will be worth its weight in, hundreds of thousands of pounds, maybe millions of pounds. And people don't understand this because up front, right, you're just thinking about, oh, my KDA isn't good in Call of Duty or CS:GO, right? Or I didn't win this tournament, right? And like these are very small events. What you need to actually track in esports and video games is actually how your body's responding to the trauma, the stress response. You need to track that over the long term so you can actually improve your game. And so this is why I say esports isn't about winning games on a screen because you need to track your stress response first, and then you improve your in-game behavior patterns. And so people will not actually like hit the highest levels that they can go to in video games and esports because again their stress response it's messed up. If you don't track this over the long term, you're never going to beat the top professionals who have these proprietary softwares and technology. You're just never going to be able to perform the way they do under a stressful situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think some people might not be able to see the whole vision behind this whole product because at the end of the day, we selected esports gamers, but those are our initial target users. But we want to go into people who do online therapy, people who do play different kinds of sports, people who go through different situations in army, in defense, people who fly aircraft, like people who operate submarines and all of those things, and we want to get the visualization on all of those data and how all those people behave differently in different situations to build a really proper models around it. And now it might be so for people who are in the esports industry, it might not be easy for them to see this vision because they want to see an instant correlation between the using and buying the device and the output and the performance they are trying to achieve within the game. That's why we have this a tangent on our platform where we are plotting their game performance in real time so that we provide them that instant benefit of buying the platform, buying the device and using the platform, so that if they're playing any particular game like CSGO or like Dota or League of Legends, then there will be times when the loops or cycles of performance drops will happen where they might not be able to visualize that while because they're in gaming, they're gaming and they're in deep focus. And this kind of data and alerts will provide a layer of insights for them, and this is like an instant benefit for them. Whereas we stay on our path to collect this data, rich data, and build our models for wider applications to help to help the whole industry in future, especially neuroimaging industry and uh, neuropsychiatry as well, because if someone comes out with a really good implants, we will be the go-to place for the brain data where they can actually use it to simulate how that device might be able to work in this different types of population. So that's our vision, but we're going to start at the very ground level, and that's why esports players are very key for us because they don't move a lot, so the motion errors into the device will be minimal while we are also trying to develop a device for athletes who move about, but it's going to take us 1 year. But this esports players, they stay stationary, they have their head movements, which is fine, and we build our algorithm so that we can track those things as well. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But I feel like for 300 pounds, maybe even less, depending on how far down we can drop our manufacturing cost. We just want to see how we can help them. And even if on the level of like, even if it's useful or not, because we're still looking into, we haven't done the trials yet. So we're starting our trials in end of August, on 100 people to see how the device works while they're gaming. And there will be so many other different issues like they put the device on, but they don't like something having on their head as well. So loads of ergonomic issues as well we want to deal with. So yeah, we will figure out maybe in 2 3 months if we can take it to the next level with esports gamers. If not, then we will have to figure out a way to build the device differently.
So one thing that you mentioned with your response that I appreciate a lot, I'm very thankful you said this, is that the ergonomics, right? Having like a hat on my head, it's not uncomfortable. It has utility in terms of keeping my, head warm and it's stylish. The thing with this device is that the utility, you're not going to see that up front. You're going to see that months or maybe years later. And so the problem that people in esports need to deal with is the instant gratification. Even if you make the device look like my hat, right? You make it comfortable like my hat, the utility still isn't going to be up front. It's not going to be the same instant they start using the device. You need to track the performance. You need to track the way you explained it. You need to track the actual in-game performance as well as your brain body performance in terms of stress response. So these things, once you delay the instant gratification that a lot of video gamers have, right? They want to see the next milestone, the next level up experience, right? That's not something where you can sustainably beat other professionals at the highest level if you're going to be based on instant gratification. Because some people in esports, they will train for 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 years, and you won't see them at a championship for those 10 years, and then that 11th year they win the Dota International. And so people like they don't think about those delayed instant gratification experiences where if you were just training with a device, you don't see the results immediately, right? Years later, you might have an experience in real life where you're not using the device, but your stress response is better. You know how to control let's say if you're having some type of psychological, let's say, attack on you, right? Someone's trying to manipulate you negatively. What are you going to do in that situation where in the video game world, right? Maybe you would just, pull a trigger in CSGO, you take out the enemy. That's one way, but that's in the video game. In the real world, right? You need to learn how to deal with these different situations in terms of crisis response. And if you can't do that with the help of this device, right, and train yourself to behave accordingly, then you just can't perform against professionals. And every major esports team and organization, I promise you, they will be having these same types of discussions behind closed doors with these devices. And you need to understand the ergonomics of the device. It's not what's important. What's important is the actual data you get in game long term from now. You're not going to see the utility right now. It's important to have this clarification because a lot of gamers they might think that the ergonomics is a huge drawback, but I'm like it just doesn't matter if you just want to base it purely on performance and how you want to improve your life in game and offline.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we're not trying to build a device so that people can just use it and get the instant benefit. Because any devices, there are not many. First thing that there are not many devices out there which actually accurately measures your brain activity per se. So this is going to be one of the very few devices which actually does it. And we're going to have our research paper out with loads of very high profile professors and researchers in this field where we're going to test our device on different conditions. So this is going to be one of a kind device which is going to be at an affordable rate, but whenever we put it on, you are actually measuring your brain activity, and we are enabling users for first time to actually do it on a very high scale as well. So yeah, I think this has been an interesting chat, and I would like to know, like, because you're in this industry, like how can we like leverage our communication and take it to the next level so that I can actually see like the device being used for some of the people you might know, and get some feedback out of it, because we are still in the UAT process. So we want to try this device out on as many people and as many different types of people as well. So yeah, so what do you think about that?
So the way I tell people about my esports journey is when I was starting out with like my agency back in 2017 in high school, I had my startup. I didn't have access to a device like this. And what I would have to do is I would have to hire coaches and they would coach me and they would coach the players I work with. And we didn't have anything to measure our brain performance. Why? Because again, the proprietary software technology it costs thousands of pounds. So you need to think when you're just starting as a gamer, the way you interpret this experience with Samarth, you can't think about the upfront cost. You have to remove that. You can't think about the upfront delayed instant gratification. You have to remove that as well. You want to think about find that one gamer, right? The way we call this in marketing is the kingpin approach, right? You find that one cyber athlete, that one professional, and then you pay them. And the reason why you pay them is you say, hey, for the next 90 days or 180 days, I want you to test this device and we'll pay you this stipend. Why a stipend? Because you're going to have an upfront fee and then you're going to have the stipend, which is like 30 days, 60, 90 days, however long that period of time is, pay them monthly because you need that retainer to make sure that they can not only benefit financially from the experience, but also you can guarantee some sort of user experience that is genuine, right? Because people will not usually do things for their health in terms of seeing just a positive outcome. They need a negative stress response. So when somebody gets diagnosed with, let's say they have severe anxiety disorder when you're a cyber athlete, they usually won't go to their therapist or psychologist and say, hey, I'm having trouble focusing in game. That's not how it starts. How it starts is they'll see their performance drop in game, and then they'll see their friendships get affected, and then they'll see their eating behavior patterns get affected. They'll see their exercise behavior patterns getting affected, and then they'll see the way people interact with them and their team in terms of their teammates that will be affected, and so their synergy, their relationships will be all messed up. And then once they have that negative response from other people, that's when they're going to go to the therapist. That's when they're going to go to the psychologist and say, hey, I think I have an anxiety disorder or something. Because you won't see all of that upfront damage just in the game, right? Be like, oh, my performance is bad this month. So what? Who cares? Or maybe I lost a tournament. So what? Who cares? Right? People don't think about the upfront health benefit. They think about the negative effects. So to effectively market this, right, you want to find the top cyber athlete that you can pay up front just to get access to them. But then also you have the retainer, right, that stipend. So you can get them to be aware of that negative influence. If you don't use this device, right, X will happen. And we have the data to support this. And this is how you save yourself from X. So let's say if you don't want anxiety disorders, then you say, hey, this is our researcher. This is our top cyber athlete who had an anxiety disorder. And this is how we reduced the symptoms or reduce the consequences of the anxiety disorder. But this is something you don't want to experience, right? This is a negative outcome. Instead, if you just focus only on the positive, people are going to say, well, I performed better in my game 90 days. You know, it was a great experience and I got paid. Well, most people will not have that experience because they're not going to be a top cyber athlete you can pay. They're going to think about, well, I might not be performing well this match. And then it's just going to escalate into a downward spiral. So you focus on the negatives to get their attention, but then you focus on the positives of the research, right? Of the correlation between the therapist, the psychologist, the cyber athlete, and then all the people that you're doing studies with. And then you'll say, hey, these are the benefits you're going to get long term. But to keep you here, to keep you in the program, to keep you training with us, to keep you paid and healthy, even look at the negatives that you're going to face if you don't keep practicing with this device, or if you don't keep practicing with this researcher and the data that they provided to you, because this is your brain, right? This is your body's response. This is your in-game performance. This literally is the difference between you having a good life or a bad life. And so a lot of people, if they don't have that negative outcome up front, they're not going to be able to understand the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that, and I think the first thing is to the first hurdle is to measure any of the things you talked about. No one is measuring it. No one is measuring your correlation between your performance, brain performance, and not the lack of proper diet and your lack of activity. Like no one is doing all of those three together in one platform and helping users with any kind of insights, and that's what we are trying to bring into the market right now. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of minute left because I have literally one more meeting right now at 5:30. But yeah, let's communicate further on email and let's see how we can collaborate. And if you have any esports gamers who you think might benefit from using this device, then I am happy to take this conversation forward and help you with devices and whatnot.
All right, let the audience know where they can find you online.
Yeah, I think you can find us online on www.hypergamma.co.uk. So it's HYPERGAMMA. So it's like Hypergamma. We are not live yet, so we are not even taking pre-orders or we are not even doing wait lists, but you can just put your email there. We're gonna be live in October, end of October. So yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Samarth, and I will speak with you soon. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.